Good morning. Welcome into Five Clubs on Golf Channel. Of course, you can listen as well. That is Channel 92 on Sirius XM's PGA Tour Radio. And you might notice we have left home to come home, to the home of golf. We are live right behind me, the RNA building. We are in the village of St. Andrews in the Kingdom of Fife. It is so great to be here. And of course, this program, wherever we are, is always brought to you by Century Insurance. They are right by you. The things they invest in the game of golf, from the United States Golf Association to the First Tee. Golf Pride playing over the weekend here with the Align Max grips all the way through my bag to the reverse taper putter grip system. There is no product better than Golf Pride. Of course, everything that I've worn for 15 years, every layer. You know I like to layer up, doing it here with Peter Millar. It's in every shop in Scotland, as it should be. They have refined performance, luxury, and style for almost 25 years. And of course, here is the home of golf. And in America, the cradle of American golf, that is Pinehurst Resort. When you go there, you're going to find something new every single time. That's why they are the leader when it comes to providing on-course and off-course activities, more so than any resort in the United States. We are in Scotland. It is always so fulfilling to be here. And we are right here on the balcony at the Rusacks Hotel. Now, I was lucky enough to come to Scotland 30 years ago for the first time, right around this time of the year. It was September of 1995 with my dad. My favorite photograph is in front of that building. We teed off at 4:30. But to come to this property and to get the kind of hospitality we have enjoyed and are going to enjoy, that balcony, that is where I am, just above that glorious room where you can have great meals. Some of the balconies of the additions to this wonderful hotel that was purchased by RJ Capital some years ago. They've done a fantastic job of taking a building that is over 140 years old and adding that wing you see there on the right-hand side. To have a room with that balcony and to see that sunrise, I was just after 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, is glorious. And to play up the 18th hole, and of course you can see that boundary right there, you cannot get closer to one of the, if not the most important property in golf. And, you know, a lot of people may say that coming to St. Andrews or the Old Course or just this town is the heartbeat of golf. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's the most vital organ in golf. Everything that happens in the game, starting with the rules in conjunction, obviously, with the USGA and what the RNA does to govern the game of golf. But yesterday, to have the opportunity to come out here, it's the first time I've been here when the golf course was closed on a Sunday. And if there's no competition going on here being played on the Old Course, then the golf course is closed and it becomes the most famous dog park in the world. And from sun up until sunset, people of all ages just walking this property, walking every hole, or just taking dogs and letting them jump into the burns. And we have a lot of pictures, and we will celebrate the Dogs of St. Andrews, a special Dogs of the Week on Wednesday. There's something about coming here that fills you up. And to see people from all over the world, and particularly from the United States, seeing people, whether it be in pubs at lunchtime or at dinner time, or just walking through this amazing town, they come here to get nourished through the game of golf. And people walking through town with bags on their shoulders. This is not just a big four sport in this country, it's the sport. So when you walk into a pub and there's golf being played somewhere professionally or around the world, it's not on a couple of TVs. It's on every television, as was the FedEx Cup Championship or the FedEx Championship in Memphis yesterday. And let's begin there because we got a lot to dive into over the next hour. Brendan Porath from Friday Golf is going to join me here in less than 15 minutes. Justin Rose, in scintillating fashion in a playoff over J.J. Spaun, who has not just gotten to a different level, he has become entrenched at the elite level of professional golf. Justin Rose beats him in a playoff, and it wasn't because J.J. Spaun gave it to him. Justin Rose had to keep making birdies on the 18th hole. Scotty Scheffler, he wasn't at his best. He was good. J.J. Spaun was better playing alongside him. Of course, Scotty didn't have Ted Scott on his bag. Tommy Fleetwood, we will talk about Tommy. Tommy, 16 and 17, the undoing. It looked like he was unflappable. It looked like he was going to cross the line. It does not happen. More to discuss with him. Cam Young, that top five. Cam Young is plowing his way toward a position on that United States Ryder Cup team, it seems, without any doubt. We'll talk to Brendan about that. Akshay Bhatia, Ricky Fowler, he was one of the big movers to move his way all the way inside the top 50. He will play in the BMW Championship. The other caveat, the big bonus of being in the 50 is not only playing that second playoff series event, it's also what it means for the signature series next year. Andrew Novak, is there still a chance for him to possibly be chosen on that United States Ryder Cup team? I think it's remote right now, but let's say he top fives again next week. Who knows? Patrick Cantlay, I think he and Ben Griffin, that's the problem for Andrew Novak, is that other guys on the back end of what we think that roster is going to be also played well. They obviously improved their positions with respect to the FedEx Cup playoffs. But let's go back to the beginning. And before we talk specifically about Justin Rose, and there's a lot to discuss with Justin Rose at the age of 45, when we had Brendan Young and Johnson Wagner in the studio last week, one of the things we talked about were the better stories in 2025. And some of those stories are going to continue on to the BMW Championship at Caves Valley. But one of the biggest stories going into last week was the absence of one player, and of that, of course, was Rory McIlroy. Once a tournament starts, you kind of move on from that. It's a pre-tournament storyline. What the PGA Tour got, what Memphis got, what St. Jude got, what FedEx got yesterday is everything you could ever hope for in a playoff series event. You got a decorated leaderboard. You got a collage of players that J.J. Spaun has gotten to a different level, so he alone makes it more interesting. We know he was going to be on that United States Ryder Cup team, but it wasn't just him winning the U.S. Open. It was also him getting to another playoff and another monster event, which he did on that Monday at the Players with Rory McIlroy. Tommy Fleetwood and his pursuit of winning for the first time on the PGA Tour, that was a massive storyline. Scheffler, without Ted Scott, and whether he was there or whether he wasn't, the last time we didn't have him was after he got arrested in Louisville. I can't believe I said that, and that is actually a truthful statement that happened around the PGA Championship before the second round in 2024. So he goes into the final round. You're going, okay, he's 2 shots back. He has the longest shadow in golf. He touches the lead. He's going to emerge. And it didn't quite happen for him. He singed the edge a handful of times on the inward nine. It seemed like every single iron shot that he struck was the proper weight. And then you have Justin Rose. Justin Rose is somebody who a couple of years ago, in 2021 and 2022, he was outside the top 100 at the end of the FedEx Cup regular season and at the end of the season, which made me think that his Ryder Cup career and his presence among the elite in men's professional golf was over. Not only was it not over, he not only has emerged again to win again, but he is going to be on that European Ryder Cup team. I think most people thought he was going to be on the team whether he won a playoff series event or not. Luke Donald, I think, is going to ride with those 12 Rough Riders for all intents and purposes that he had in Rome. But Justin Rose embodies something that I think in other sports, particularly baseball, it almost becomes a disparaging way to describe somebody, that they're a, quote, compiler. They're productive, but they don't really have an enormous impact anymore. So good for them. They're good enough to continue to do it. Compilers in baseball, again, it's kind of a weird way of saying he's been good for a very long time. Instead of just leaving it there, we say, well, he's just accruing stats. Golf isn't really that way because we don't spend as much time on the other things other than winning. At 45 years of age, Justin Rose becomes the oldest winner from Europe in the modern era of the PGA Tour, which is really the only era in which the PGA Tour has existed, even though going back to the Wyndham, they want you to believe that Willie Park drove a courtesy car in 1860 to win for the first time. And of course, Cameron Young was the 1,000th unique winner. It's unique to win any PGA Tour event after the age of 40. Justin Rose, I thought, at the end, whenever the end was going to be, that he was going to have enough that people were going to evaluate the totality of his career and they were going to say, he's a Hall of Famer. I didn't need to see him win yesterday for me to feel that, because when you're as good as he's been, for as long as he's been as good as he's been, I think that that is one of the measuring sticks. And that's why I think that the Hall of Fame, which we talked about last week as it pertained to other people outside of elite players, that they should be a little bit more pragmatic about the way that they look at potential candidates for enshrinement. It's interesting that Justin Rose and Adam Scott are very dear friends. They're basically the same guy if you look at their careers, really down to like the minutia of it all. Now, Adam Scott has won 2 more times on the PGA Tour than Justin Rose. They both have a major. Coincidentally, they both won that major in the same year in 2013. Adam Scott won the Masters to become the first Australian to win the tournament. And of course, Justin Rose held off the likes of Phil Mickelson and Hunter Mahan to win that U.S. Open at famed Marion. He also was the guy who made the choice, unlike so many other top players, to not go to Rio and play in the Olympic Games. And so he was not the first gold medalist because golf had been part of the Olympic program formally, but he won it. And he was on a podium with Hendrik Stenson and Matt Kuchar, and that image, those optics, served the game of golf as it related to the future of golf in the Olympics exceptionally well. So I give him credit for that. And if you look beyond that, you start looking out and start to kind of extrapolate the wins and the value of wins. And at the end, it's just the raw number itself. Justin Rose, when you are in an era where the guts of your era, if you remember 1998, when he showed up for the first time at the age of 17 and did what he did to be a huge part of that Open Championship that Mark O'Meara won in a playoff over Brian Watson. Of course, Tiger, that was his first real-time contending in the Open Championship. That's the name. In the Tiger era, to emerge at the back end of that era where that guy gobbled up 82 and so many other molecules of oxygen, and to be a guy who's won 12 times and a major and a gold medal, and at 45 you win again, to me there's a weightiness to that. And here's the last part of the conversation about longevity and this time of who's playing when, and you can only play and live when you live. The money is great, it is, but it also encroaches on the human condition. Like, how much do you really want to keep doing this when you know that the mortgage is paid for, the kids' private schools are paid for, the second, third, fourth home might be paid for, and you can say none of that stuff really matters. But in the end, we're all affected by certain things. And when you get to a certain age and you have all the things that you think you need and your kids need, and maybe even your grandchildren need, do you really want to go out there and do what is required? And I mean putting on your big boy pants every day and doing the work and keeping a body that at 45 may not be cooperating the way that it was 20 years ago, hell, let alone 10 years ago. And you love the grind. Competitive people are always going to be competitive. But for Justin Rose to win that golf tournament yesterday, and oh, by the way, be in another Masters playoff as he was with Rory, he has extended not only kind of the breadth of his productive portion of his career, I think what he's done is put himself in a very specific position so that when he doesn't have to get up on a soapbox and project who he is as a player, the people who are responsible to tell you that this guy is going to be enshrined into the World Golf Hall of Fame, it's not going to take a lot of time. And let's just remember what he did 2 years ago in Rome. A guy who had a balky, faulty, inconsistent, unreliable putter. Now it seems like he makes everything like he did in Rome and like he did yesterday on the Inward Nine in a tournament that was everything we would hope that it could possibly be. It was great theater. The PGA Tour got everything they could hope for. And here comes Rory to Caves Valley, a place that doesn't have professional golf that much. They'll be lathered up. You can count on that. And also, one last thing. I think the PGA Tour swallows comfortably knowing that they share the storylines with the PGA of America as it relates to the Ryder Cup. When you get someone like J.J. Spaun who's going to be on that team, and Justin Rose who's going to be on that team, and Fleetwood, and Scheffler, and Cam Young making his move, all of it put in the pot of stew that is elite professional golf, it's a big win. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we continue, Brendan Porath, he wrote something I thought was excellent last week about kind of what the PGA Tour and what the FedEx Cup playoffs are. He's going to join me. We've got much more to discuss on other storylines as it relates to the FedEx Cup playoffs. We had a U.S. Women's Amateur decided on the coastline of Oregon. As you can see where I am, there's no place, I mean no place, that I would rather be, whether I'm playing golf or not. This is as good as it gets. The home of golf, live from Rusacks. It's room 116 on the balcony. It is 5 Clubs on a Monday on Golf Channel, also on Channel 92, Sirius XM's PGA Tour Radio. Brendan Porath next. Welcome back in. It is 5 Clubs live from the Rusacks Hotel, right here on the balcony, room 116, overlooking the 18th hole, the first tee of the old course, the R&A building behind us. We appreciate their great hospitality. Of course, we appreciate Golf Pride, one of our core partners in terms of giving you options, giving you the best materials. And I mean through the bag. There's nobody better than Golf Pride. My Align Max grips, absolutely love the product that they give me, including that reverse taper putter grip series as well. Thank you to Golf Pride. Thank you as well to Brendan Porath, who has been a guy always reliable to get his perspective on things as we go through this year. And I think back to the first week of this program and the things that we did with Brendan talking about. One of the storylines we'll get to, he, of course, head of content for Friday Golf. I know how much he and Andy and the rest of the team loves coming over here. Thank you for joining me from your home. I know you survived the weekend of being the captain of the SS Porath. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, Gary. Thank you. I have a much less inspiring background than you. Yes, I was boating with way too many kids all weekend, totally out of my depth, both at the helm and in the water. So I'm home, ready to get school supplies and not play golf in Scotland. That's my day.
Well, I'm not deliberately doing the thumbs up or over and over again that I think might be showing on my monitor. I promise you, I think my computer's just happy to be here. I'll try to make that adjustment, that technical adjustment here at the break. Let's you and I start with Justin Rose, because, you know, I started the program talking about longevity. Longevity is an interesting term when it comes to sports. It's impressive, but yet I think sometimes we go, yeah, he's still good enough. Like, do you realize how insane it is to still be good enough in any sport at an advanced stage? I know you do. Give me the value of what we saw him do, not only yesterday, but what he continues to still do, because 45, you're a unicorn out there now.
Yeah, you alluded to it in the opening segment, especially in this era of, I don't want to call it excess, but comfort, right? There's money. The purses are larger than ever. You're able to retire. The Champions Tour is depleted for a reason, because the guys don't need to chase the money after 50 years old. And Justin Rose, you can kind of fall into this comfort era, right? And you're playing out the strain in your 40s, or you can rest on your laurels, or you can go home and spend time with the family. Go on the boat like I did this weekend. There's Justin Rose, though, with everything. He doesn't need the cash necessarily, but he's playing for more than that right now. And he's playing in Memphis in August because it still means something to him. We saw him qualify last year for Troon. I think in the last 5 to 6 years, few players have won over more fans, won over more sort of golf sickos than Justin Rose. And I think it's part of it's the work ethic, part of it's the grind, some of it's sort of the joy that he gets still from trying to achieve the absolute highest things. Look, I don't need to suggest he's, some great martyr or some icon for playing golf for millions of dollars into his 40s. But we haven't seen this happen that consistently, where he is among the game's elite. Look, he was going against two major winners this year, Scotty Scheffler and J.J. Spaun, guys who are younger than he is. One of the pieces I saw earlier this year from Claire Rogers, who I know was on the program last week, toward his sort of health and wellness motorhome that he bought. Now, few of us can afford to do such a thing, but a lot of players can't. He bought some motorhome, and he's got all these sort of gizmos that can kind of keep him in shape and keep him young, whether it's the plunge tub, and he parks it at these events. And so I think other players of his age maybe have access to that kind of those funds to do that, but none of them are doing it. And it seems like it means something. Like he gives a damn, still into his 40s and having achieved everything he has, and he loves going up. We saw it in Marco Simone. Look, he missed the team at Whistling Straits after being a stalwart, but then he gets back on, and you're sort of like, is he still a part of this era of Ryder Cup player? Right? You had Rory and Rahm holdovers, but a lot of it was new blood. And he was tasked with going with the rookie, with Bobby McIntyre. That was one of the most inspiring, sort of this old lion performance, right? One of the more inspiring European performances at Marco Simone. And I think it just continues to roll into it, whether it was qualifying for True and said, look, I still have a chance. As long as I have a chance, I'm going to chase it. And he's maxing himself out at 45 when he doesn't have to. I think there's something inspiring in that.
I couldn't agree more. The other part, which is interesting, is that when a lot of his peers, European peers who have similar profiles, different, you can evaluate, their careers differently, but a lot of them made the choice to go to live. And we know that choice for him, by all accounts, was there, and he didn't take it. And I think in the end, when you start to evaluating careers, and whether it's 5 years from now, 15 years from now, and you go, oh, that's the guy who, unlike the others, Stenson, a guy, again, one major, Graham McDowell, not as productive, not as prolific a winner as Justin Rose, but we can go through that list. Sergio, just start clicking them off. And he's the guy who stayed. And to your point, not only did he make another Ryder Cup team, and there were a lot of mans of the match. They all were. They were collectively a dynamo. But I think that too, the gravity of all of that will weigh into me when I evaluate him, whenever we decide to evaluate him when it comes to that body, that Hall of Fame body. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, completely. I think his Ryder Cup presence, I think the longevity matters a lot. It matters. There's something about, there's the peak, right? And we see it a little bit maybe happening with Jordan Spieth as well. Like the very high, the peak is something that carries a lot of weight. But I think we're starting to understand the reason Rory McIlroy continues to resonate is because he's never been out of the top 10 for what feels like our entire lives. He may not be the major championship player some of those years in between, or he may not be an elite top of the order player, but he still manages to stick in the top 10. So I think we tend to weigh longevity, especially in this era where equipment constantly evolving, optimization occurring more with the younger players coming on the scene faster, the game changing, where it's just how much speed can you dial up and then figure it out from there. I think longevity has a lot more value, a lot more weightiness to it in this era, and that's what Rose continues to possess. And we're talking about sort of the subjective. Then there's the objective and aesthetic of his game. Like, it is beautiful to watch him flag shot over and over and over again. And that's what I thought, with Memphis yesterday. It's not necessarily the greatest PGA Tour event, but you had strikers only, man. It was Scheffler, it was Spaun, it was Fleetwood. Maybe they didn't all strike it perfectly yesterday, and Justin Rose. These are ball strikers, and that was a great playoff event. And Rose went 4 birdies in a row. It's really fun to watch him play. And then you have on top of it sort of the meaning of it to him at 45 that I think resonates out to those who are watching.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier about ingratiating himself and not doing it in a gratuitous way. I mean, first of all, he's a consummate professional. He's a delightful guy. You could tell the empathy that he had for Tommy Fleetwood playing alongside him. He burst past him at the end, the moment they had when they came off 18 and he's got to go off to a playoff. Let me get your thoughts on J.J. Spaun, because in a year in which Rory completes the Slam, Scheffler wins the 2 other majors, and there he is sandwiched there with the bomb on 18 at burly, brawny Oakmont, but he also had the playoff with Rory. And now he has this yesterday in terms of where he is and people's awareness of him and just your overall assessment of the way that he's managed ascending to a place totally unfamiliar to him?
Yeah, but I think he's getting increasingly familiar with it. And I think we saw that yesterday.
Yes.
And you roll into Bethpage, he's on the team. He's actually automatic now. He was announced yesterday. We knew he was going to be there anyways, but now it's official. You roll into Bethpage with a good bit of confidence based on what we've seen. Yesterday, when the first bomb didn't go on 18, he was almost incredulous, like this one in whatever you want to call it, 30 chance. But he was sort of in disbelief that it didn't go in. He was that confident. And then he almost nailed it the next time and then nails it the third time when he's 30, 40 feet away on the right side of the green. So I think he's really become increasingly familiar with that spot. Oakmont, look, it put a lot of more accomplished or more experienced players in a blender, and it did not for him with that horrible start. And then to get back on the horse and play in the conditions he did. And I don't think he's necessarily fallen off a cliff. He's been adequate and consistent through the summer since Oakmont. He was there for a reason at the Players' Championship. I think yesterday it was a 50-50 ball with all we just talked about with Justin Rose and the confidence and sort of the career to build to lean on in those moments. I wasn't expecting either of those guys to falter, and they didn't really. I guess you could consider Spaun's last putt where he couldn't match and he was inside of Rose, sort of letting go. But both of those guys, I have utmost confidence rolling in to Bethpage. And Spaun, look, at the Players, I was sort of like, all right, this is a 1-week deal.
Yes.
Let's see it. He airmails the green at 17. He's just hot at the right day, and he's not in Rory's class. And I'm not suggesting he is now, but I think he's increasingly familiar, and you got to be really confident with him rolling into Bethpage.
With respect to the way he played yesterday, I thought his ability to match Scotty Scheffler's iron play, it was like shot for shot. The guy didn't blink. I thought it was very, very impressive. And again, he was the one who spurted ahead of Scotty when I thought Scotty, when he touched the lead, not that it was over, but I thought that everybody else, the attrition of it all, kind of what we're used to seeing, and he didn't blink at all. Very, very impressed. All right, so how would you describe this outcome for Tommy Fleetwood?
It's heartbreaking. It's affirming to the narrative that he cannot get it done. Had Johnny Miller or somebody it would have been pretty searing yesterday. And look, something happens, something changes. It's incredible. It's gripping cinema to watch, and not because you enjoy it. You have obviously a lot of empathy, as Justin Rose, you alluded to, had for Fleetwood. He seems like one of the great guys in golf, but there's something that clearly happens with him when he gets in the lead. And he had 2 or 3 days to sleep on it and know it was coming on Sunday. But something happens to him. He lays up on 18 on Saturday. That's the first sign of, that was just a needless layup from a relatively okay lie to a place where you just send it. And then you get he's 2 up with 3-4 to play yesterday, and he just gasses the chip through 16, gasses it. He doesn't know whether to go high or low. There's some indecision, gasses it through, lucky to make par, hits a poor chip on 17, hits a worse putt, then just sort of abdicates from even getting in it on 18 with the wide drive, and it doesn't execute the way Justin Rose did. It was a stark contrast. You don't want to say he's a choker or can't get it done. Would it surprise you if he wins even this week at Caves Valley? No, it wouldn't. But there's something that is happening here that, at point, maybe it was just a joke or ribbing, like, but he's never won on the PGA Tour. We know he's won around the world. We know he's been a great Ryder Cup performer in pressurized situations. Maybe it was just a joke or a bit. Now there's something that has built and something mental there that he cannot, or something changes where he can't get across the line. And some of it's strategy choices, but a lot of it was execution, because he was poor really from the get-go, despite the birdie run there in the middle.
Yeah, Brendan, I thought when he walked off 15 green, I didn't think it was over because of his own history. But again, the dime store psychoanalysis, I thought he was playing mind and body, cooperating, a sense of freedom, releasing the club. And from 16 through the end, there was something grippy about it. There was something steerage about it, including like the second on 17 was very telling to me. I thought that was the poorest full shot that he hit. And like you said, the choice he made on the way he executed the third on 16. The one thing I will say, and I think there is value in this for everybody, regardless of your level, is that I use the word outcome. Look, the Stoics, the teaching was don't look at it like success or failure. They're outcomes. Don't defeat yourself by saying you failed. There is great credit that he does deserve, though, by putting himself back in the ring in these late rounds, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And he spoke eloquently about that. And credit to him, he spoke to Damon right after the round at length and is a pretty open book about it. But I think we're getting to an era where we're getting to a level where something is a little more alarming or a little more disconcerting. Yeah, of course, applaud him for jumping back in the arena. I think that's kind of what he's supposed to do. He's a professional athlete. He's very good at what he does. But he does keep exposing himself to hurt and pain, and he keeps the right mindset about it. Look, he'd rather be there with the heartbreak. As a Cleveland sports fan, I can attest. All the tears make the champagne taste better at the end when it finally does happen. So he says he'd rather be there and have the chance to fumble it, have the chance to miss the shot or get dunked on, as I watched over and over again as a youth, Cleveland sports. He'd rather be there with the chance for heartbreak than to not be involved at all. So that's the right perspective. But something has to change both in strategy and execution when he does get in those moments.
One thing I will say, if you're an American fan and you're thinking, well, this will manifest itself, on Saturday afternoon in a 4-ball match, I don't think it will. I think it's entirely different. No. I think if you're presuming that suddenly, late in a match, it's a totally different dynamic, which again makes that as if they needed any more layers to this particular story. So you and I, let's go back to the first week in January, came on the show. You and I both made it emphatically clear that the idea that Keegan Bradley would be on this team was something that we needed to defeat right away. Let's please squash this before February 1st. Well, it's the middle of August. What is happening? Do you think that this little mini backslide, look, since he won, his best result is a tie for 30th. That includes a missed cut in there, a couple spots outside the top 40. Where are we with the whole Keegan playing thing right now?
Well, this is where we go with these constant Ryder Cup check-ins and where we wait February, even June. I think I came on with you in June, maybe the Monday or Tuesday after he won Travelers. I said, he's on the team. He's on the team. On my own podcast. Yeah. Well, at the time, he was clearly one of the best 6, 7, maybe 5 American golfers in the world. But on my own podcast, I was like, look, it's June 20th or whatever it was. Are we just putting him on the team because of a Sunday in Cromwell, Connecticut in June? And we saw everyone sort of acceded to that. Like, he's on the team. And we even heard the goalpost moved a little bit. Like, he went from I'll play if I'm an automatic qualifier, top 6 guy, to I'll play if it helps the team and I'm one of the best players. Now, since that June date of the Travelers, he's slid back and he slid back a little bit. But it's not just his part of the equation, his half. The field has gotten incredibly crowded. A lot more Americans have started to play well, have contending for that spot. You mix that with the veterans you probably want in the team room, like a Patrick Cantlay, and it's a real predicament. We're getting, Shane Ryan, the sort of a Ryder Cup documentarian over the last decade, has called it the nightmare scenario. And I think he's right. He's like that 10th, 11th, 12th pick. And with 5, 6 guys with justifiable claims for it. And he's one of them. Look, he has a claim to the spot in any other year. He's probably should be on the team. He's been one of the better American players this year. But here we are. We've created this scenario. They've created PGA of America, Keegan Bradley. Could they have seen this coming? Probably could have envisioned it. Was it likely? Maybe not. But here we are. And it is, in fact, the nightmare scenario where he is one of the last 2 to 3 picks with 6, 7 guys with claims for it. And I think it's increasingly unlikely that he plays. It might kill him to do it. Maybe maybe, he's worked forever for this. Since 2014 Glen Eagles, we know what it means to him. He'd kill to be in this position again where he is for sure an option, a likely option. But now we throw in the curveball of the playing captaincy, which the Euros, as we said in January, and is still the case, the Euros have to be doing backflips for joy that this is happening, that he could be the captain and playing. That's exactly what they want. Is it going to be determinative? No, but everything at the margins helps, and that's what they want. It's a big job, and having to play makes it even harder. So I think it makes it, just from optics, it's getting increasingly more difficult when you have Cameron Young, Chris Gotterup, players like that looking for these last spots. Sam Burns, who's so close with Scotty Scheffler, has done pretty well this summer and has played in these team events before. It's increasingly difficult to do it from an optics perspective. Now, if that doesn't matter, he's like, look, I've been one of the best 10, 11, 12 players. I'm playing. Then go with God and do it. But we're in the nightmare scenario now, right now, Gary.
Well, if Shane is driving that three-wheeler, you and I have been in the sidecars on each side of him since the beginning of the year. Always appreciate the conversation. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, that is Brendan Porath. Those are winning words from Century Insurance. Always have a thoughtful conversation with the content leader, the head of content for Friday. And, of course, they've got their own program as well on CBS Sportsnet, noons Eastern on Wednesday. That would be 5 o'clock in St. Andrews. All right, we're going to continue here more on the movement of yesterday. And the storylines that we got, are those the types of things that are valuable enough for the PGA Tour? We continue here right from the backdrop of the 18th at the Old Course in St. Andrews from the Rusacks Hotel. We're back with you right after this. Welcome back on this Monday. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, also SiriusXM's PGA Tour Radio. That is Channel 92. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. Proudly, as we transition to fall, there's no place I would rather go to than a Peter Millar store. And in every single shop around St. Andrews, they are featured more than any other apparel line. They have more to offer when it comes to whatever it is that you need in your life. On and off the golf course, they have refined performance, luxury, and style for almost 25 years. And of course, watching people finish their rounds playing into town here on the 18th. You can see the R&A building. It's great to be in St. Andrews here again tomorrow and Wednesday from the balcony. It is room 116 at the Rusacks Hotel. Got some great guests tomorrow and Wednesday to boot. All right, some of the stories that we got because of the way that the tournament played out in Memphis it's good. You just wonder how valuable some of this is. And as we take a look at some of the players that move themselves into a position to not only move on, but it also is significant as it relates to 2026. And of course, I know on NBC quite a bit over the weekend, you heard those stories about being exempt into those signature series events. And JT Poston, who just needed a modest result, but he needed to do something to be able to move from 51 to 50, and he was able to do that. So he is now secured. Ricky Fowler was the guy who started the week at 64th in the FedEx Cup standings, who moves to 48th. Now, one thing, and people are going to say, well, come on, Ricky Fowler is going to get into any tournament he wants to. Can't argue that. Ricky Fowler has gotten 6 sponsor exemptions in the signature series events. And I think that that's something that the PGA Tour, they may already be examining this, but that comes with the challenge as it relates to what the lifeblood of the PGA Tour is. And you look at some of those other names on there. Bud Colley is one of the best stories on the PGA Tour, I believe, this season. For Bud Colley to show up at the Players in March knowing he was running out of starts on his major medical, and to not only finish 6th there, but also have a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th as well, and to have a great result as he had this past week in Memphis. For Bud Colley, who was somebody who was in a very, very horrifying car accident some years ago that resulted in a handful of surgeries on the back end. And at 35 years of age, you're thinking, is he ever going to fulfill a level of potential that came with being one of, at a time when avoiding Q school, which used to be a real thing, to go right to the PGA Tour? That's a very small fraternity. It's a great trivia question. And then he gets in the car accident. And then you're thinking, oh my gosh, maybe he's going to toil on the PGA Tour. I think Bud is one of the best stories this year on the PGA Tour. And now for him to show up, like I said, in March and to not know whether he was going to be a member of the PGA Tour, maybe by Father's Day, to not only fortify that position, but to now be fully exempt into the Signature Series events in 2026. That's great. And those are the types of things that the PGA Tour should celebrate. Ricky Fowler, like I said, is probably going to get into most events. He's valuable. He's a valuable commodity. And if you're a sponsor, you're going, hey, don't tell me who I can and can't invite, especially if I'm shucking out the kind of money that they are for these Signature Series events. And that is one of the things as it relates to somebody who was not in that 50 as you saw, and that is Jordan Spieth. Jordan started the week at 48, and he just didn't have a good enough week, and now he finds himself at 54th. Now, we saw this year, Jordan Spieth is one of the most important assets the PGA Tour has, not just because he is a three-time major champion. He's exceedingly valuable to a sponsor to have him show up as a sponsor exemption, and suddenly you can say, can you do this and do that and do that? And they feel a sense of responsibility to do that. Wyndham Clark, not as valuable, but again, a major champion. Minwoo Lee, when he won earlier this year, I don't think many people thought that he was going to find himself in a position to now be reliant on some sponsor exemptions when it comes to the Signature Series. And that gets to another potential, not challenge, but opportunity for the PGA Tour. Would you look potentially at these playoff events in a different way and not just look at it as a continued process of regular season performance that can create some volatility, but really how you play in the events is essentially whether you advance or not on to the next week. I know that was something that was presented by a couple of writers, Joel Beal of Golf Digest specifically, and I think it's an interesting idea. But this is different. Relegation in men's professional golf is a very different thing to navigate than it would be in other sports, particularly in a place like where I am, where relegation, when it comes to soccer clubs, is a real thing. All right, we're going to come back. Some final thoughts, including giving some shine rightfully deserved for a young lady who's been in the public consciousness since she was just a young teenager. We'll talk about her. That is Mega Gane when we continue here from the old course at the Rusacks Hotel, looking over the 18th green of the old. Back with you on Golf Channel and on Sirius XM's PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92, right after this. Welcome back in. Final couple of minutes here on this Monday of 5 Clubs Golf Channel, also Sirius XM's Channel 92. That is PGA Tour Radio. This segment brought to you by Pinehurst, the cradle of American golf, the new clubhouse at number 10, the new restaurant as well. They've got a new restaurant coming that's going to open this fall in the main resort. Of course, construction of number 11 getting ready to commence as well. We appreciate the great support and partnership with the Pinehurst Resort, the cradle of American golf. We are at the home of golf, as you can see, overlooking the 18th green, the first tee. And from sun up to sundown, they play this amazing 18-hole golf course that is just it's quite the sight. And to walk the golf course, as I did yesterday, as I said at the beginning of this program, a lot of people say it's the heartbeat of golf. It's golf's most vital organ. Everything that kind of resides in the industry of golf and why we care and why we love it. If you've never been here, you must. That's what I would say. A place in America that's become very important. We talked about it last week because Mike Kaiser, who was the visionary behind Bandon Dunes, has become the journey destination for people who have one thing on their mind: to play golf from the moment they wake up until they fall in bed and they do it again the next day. Well, it's become an anchor site for various championships for the United States Golf Association. And last night on the coastline of Oregon, Mega Gane, she was crowned victorious and she won the U.S. Women's Amateur. And you think about the journey of Mega Gane, which really, for all intents and purposes, is really still just beginning. But because of what golf now has, not only the advent of more collegiate golf being shown right here on Golf Channel, and I've always given them credit, whether I was an employee or not, they deserve it because they created these platforms for midweek events. When a professional event or all of the professional events ended on a Monday, you could watch college golf on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And you saw Mega Gane playing for Stanford, but it started even before that because with the advent of the drive, chip, and putt, she was a young lady who was very skilled at a very, very young age. And we saw her perform on that stage, including chipping and putting on the 18th green at Augusta National. So she went off to Stanford, and people who watch this channel, who love this game, he went, I know who she is. And that's the thing about as generations make their way, their own way in the game of golf, you can remember where it began. And that's why things like drive, chip, and putt, and of course all these great amateur championships are so important. Congratulations to Mega Gane as she begins what will be next probably, and that is that professional career whenever she makes the choice. The men's amateur at the Olympic Club in San Francisco is this week. Brentley Romine of Golf Channel, golfchannel.com is going to join me. Let me end with just a little prayer for my boy James McCoy. He sits number 12 in the daily lottery. He may play the old course. I hope he does. We're back tomorrow from Rusacks Hotel. Have a great Monday for all of us here at 5 Clubs.